Okay, so you bought yourself a Dinky toy. You want to see if the motor's running. So you've taken off the bottom part. You've opened it up. You found a battery. You put it in. And of course you flick the switch over and you're just doing that. Well, first thing you've got to do is get yourself a propeller and flick it. Make sure that the connections to the back of the motor to the positive of the batteries make it a good connection. And that's the very first way of finding out if your motor works. Well, obviously in this case it's not. So what can we do? Well, we can take out this motor, and the first thing that we will see is this shaft is bent. It's bent. You're not going to get much joy out of that. The second thing is, if you can find yourself a multimeter like this one, and I don't know if you can see the readings on there. Let's see if we can do something with that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Let's put that under there like that. Okay, yeah, you can just about read it. And you put it on the lowest ohm setting. You'll see the little horseshoe there, that's omega. Put it on the lowest setting. You need to put one of these probes onto the positive side. This is the positive side here. It doesn't matter which lead you use because you're doing connectivity and resistance, so it doesn't matter. Okay, and the other one on the body of the motor. If you get a resistance, in this case 5.8 coming to 6 ohms, okay, milliohms, okay, that shows you have a continuity, which means that motor by rights should run. Okay, now what you can do is you can put a soldered connection onto the body and a soldered connection to the positive side. Now let's try that again, and we get 11.2 ohms. So that says that by rights that should run. So we get a battery and we get a propeller. Stick the propeller onto the shaft so you can flick it. Get your battery either end. In actual fact, it doesn't really particularly matter which way around you put this. But anyway, we're going the body side to negative, the positive side from the centre to the positive of the battery, and we flick it. Now it still doesn't run. So what is the problem? Well, one of the things you can do to overcome this problem is with your Dinky toy. First of all, a lot of the problems are to do with dirt and connection. You'll see there's a lot of paint in here, not so much around by the spring, because what's happening is the designer wants the body of that to make connection with the body of the Dinky toy, run through the frame and come out at the spring, which is the negative part of the battery. Now you're probably saying, okay, I already get that. All right, but what about if you clean it? You've got to strip your Dinky toy anyway to paint it. So if you strip all the paint off and you clean up these parts here, yeah, there's a good chance that you won't need to do any wiring connections. So, but you may have to anyway. So, what do you do? Well, that's the next part. So this is what you do. Get yourself some cotton buds, some isopropanol. It's alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Okay, it's just to get things clean. You've got your motor. You've used the multimeter. You can see it's got continuity. So one of the first things you must do is you must know what position, because if you look at the end of this, that spindle is not in the middle. So you put the motor in and rotate it until you know which way round that motor goes. So obviously that goes that way round. Yeah, it seats comfortably. The spindle is in the middle of the fuselage. You now want to mark, probably using a Sharpie pen like this, which way is up. So you put a line down it. Yeah, see that line down it? So now you have an idea, because what you want to do is attach a wire about here to the right hand side. If you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, you probably want to go left-hand side. There's a little breathing hole there, so you probably want to stay to the right-hand side. So what we have to do, we have to get that clean. So we have a little file here. You can use a nail file, it doesn't really matter much. And just to the right-hand side of that line, just rough it up a little bit, because we're going to put some solder on there. And as much solder on as you can get. Take a little bit of alcohol, past the child-proof lock, squirt a bit in the top of the lid there. You get your cotton bud, and you get that nice and clean. Okay, you don't want any grease on there, nothing. Okay, and all that dirt or whatever's on it will now rub off. Okay, now hopefully what you can do, put that back into the Dinky toy, just to hold it. You need somewhere to hold it. It's round, it'll run around your bench. And it's just to hold it in place. Okay, get your soldering iron. And this must be tinned. Okay, this is a brand new soldering iron. I haven't got the right tip on it, so I'm just going to have to use it as it is. But anyway, there you go. Have a little bit of flux. This is flux here, and what you need to do, we need to tin the motor. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit of heat on, and then as soon as you reckon it's high enough, put some solder onto the motor. Okay, there you go. Now this piece of wire, offhand I don't know what gauge it is, got to have some data wire, and put some flux on the end, oops, up on the end of the exposed metal parts. And what we need to do is get our helping hands, which I've not prepared. Where have they gone? Actually, I don't know. Where have they gone? Oh well, don't need them. We get some solder on the end there, and we tin that. There you go. So you're now tinning the ends of the cable. Now I've probably got the soldering iron a little bit too hot actually. just have to know that by experience. Now we have to get this soldered onto there. A little bit more flux on the end of that one. Put some solder on the end of there. And if you can get the darn thing to stay still for 5 seconds. There we go. Just blowing it to get it colder, because you want to pick it up in a second or two. Have a little bit of tissue ready at hand and just clean that up, because you don't want flux being everywhere. Okay? Now you want to be able to bend this up a little bit, and what we're going to do a little bit later is, when we have this soldered to the spring, now this spring, you must get this spring as clean as you can possibly get it, because we need to solder that to the spring. So we're going to tin that spring, and I'm hoping I can find something to put a little spot of flux on. Making sure the positive side of the battery is touching the positive side of that motor. And now we're going to put a prop on it and give it a flick. Now obviously you want a battery that you know is good, alright, and that's still not running. Make sure everything's lined up. Now of course I'm doing this without switching it, but I happen to know you don't really need the switch. Okay, so it naturally wants to spin anti-clockwise, I can see that. But you see you have connectivity between the body and the frame to the spring, and through the wire to the body. So you have a good connection, yeah? And I can see the connections going to the centre of the motor, and it's still not running. Okay, this is the bit where we take the motor out and take it apart. So let's flick the battery out. Okay, take the prop off. Now, you can just double check. I'm just going to try and double check it by holding it, physically holding it onto the battery. Put the prop on. Ah! Now, that runs. See how it runs? Of course it stops before I get there. And there you go. It's now running. Can you see that? Yeah? So that's just by putting a connection to the body. And now it works. And now I have a positive connection to the positive side of the motor. Right? Now, can we make it better? Well, yeah, very probably. Because one thing we can do is electronics cleaner isopol. And if I can get the lid off, you'll have a little tube. The tube goes in there, okay, and you squirt as much as this into the motor, Yeah. And you give it a bit of a spin, and that gets all the rubbish out coming out of that motor, because it's bound to be quite dirty in there. Okay. There you go. It's not going to hurt it. I wouldn't do it if I thought it was going to hurt it. Spin it around a few times. Okay. We could actually try it like that and see if it works any better. It's the battery. Now obviously I'm doing this without any help of any kind, so please bear with me. Okay, let's give that a flick. Wow, you see the difference? That's really spinning now. That's just going for it. You've got a good motor there. So by checking it with your multimeter and seeing if there's a continuity, you know it's retrievable. And all it's taken is attaching a wire and putting some cleaning fluid through the motor. And that's really going now. Yeah. So, we'll go on to the next part. Okay. So I've picked this motor up here. It's a different motor. And you can see it's a bit rusted up. A bit dirty. But I've tested it. There's a resistance there. So by rights, that should work. So I put some of the Hyphenol through it, which I'll just show you quickly again. It's this stuff. Yeah. Just buy it online. And you've got to get this clean. So let's get these connections clean first. I've got a drill here. Make sure you're wearing some glasses, some description. Get everything nice and clean. Now, there is something you can do. One moment. If you haven't got a Dremel, then don't worry. All you need is some trusty, very fine wire wool, and you can just rub that in. And this is just as effective. It's just I'm trying to save on time. Okay, and make sure that any straggly bits of wire wool is not present, because it will conduct electricity probably in parts you don't want it to be. So now if you get a motor and any part of it is green, okay, this is a chemical reaction. What you do, you get yourself a cotton bud and you use white vinegar. You rub it on, okay, and that will take off all the green gunge, and then you just let it dry. So we're going to put a little bit of alcohol in there just so we can get nice and clean. See, it's dirty already. Get it all nice and clean. Okay. Now, get everything nice and clean. We'll be seeing this again. This is a P800 grade glass paper, and we'll just give that a rub. Okay, on to the next bit. Okay, now we've got to take this apart. Now I've just got what do you call these things? I don't know what you call it, pointy thing. You'll see these two little tabs. Push them back. Yeah. Now that should release. Now you'll notice before you take it out, there's a little hole there. On the opposite side, there's a little copper tab, and that has just come off. You need to know which way around to put it back, and I've just accidentally knocked it off, but never mind. I push out the stator. This is called the stator. Okay, and you'll have a look inside there. I don't know if you can see very well because of the light. And there's your stator. That is a bit gunged up. So what I'm going to do, take a clean cotton bud, give it a white round. Okay. Yeah, there's bits of dirt on there. Yeah, that's just carbon. Okay, and you'll see that inside there, I don't think, oh, I have a torch. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. Inside there, there's one magnet. It's one magnet, and you only want one magnet. So let's have a look at the stator. Oh yeah, okay. Now, there's a resistance there because we've tested it on the multimeter earlier. Do you see this? I hope you can focus all right. See this copper bit here? We need to very lightly, it's a bit worn and dirty. You get that bright. So we're just going to take a little bit of glass paper, it's 800 grade, and just lightly give that a rub. Not too much. And turn it over. Yeah. You make sure that you do both sides. Okay, and we'll grab some more of this alcohol. Good old clean. There we go. And we'll just get that all nicely rubbed off. Make sure you take out any bits of paper that might be remaining. And of course there's a very simple type of bearing there to make sure that's nice and clean. No dirt on it. Just get everything clean, that's all you got to do. Okay. And for as long as you have continuity and resistance, that should be okay. Now, put those to one side. So now you have this part. Now you'll notice, I don't know how good the focus is on this, but there's a little tiny little wire there, a little tiny little wire there, and one connects to this side here, the other one connects to that side here, and it's spinning. Okay, so we just need to make sure that that's nice and clean. So we'll dip our alcohol in, give that a little bit of a rub. Okay, and yeah, let's get a little bit of a rub, get that nice and clean. And what did I do? Oh, there it is. Glass paper there. Just ever so slightly. If you dare to. Okay. And make sure that's all back in one piece. Now hopefully that should work. So what we're going to do, this end goes into this end. Make sure your copper is pointing up, goes into there, and you can slightly turn it. Okay, hold it, and guide that back into the body. Now this is the fiddly bit, and I'm not expecting it to go right first time, especially when there's a camera, and there you go, it pops in. Now have we got this the right way around? So I'm going to look. Okay, we need to turn this body around slightly. Hopefully that's it. Is it in the right position? No, it's not. It's not quite in the right position. I've got to turn this around. I think it's going to go. So I've put this all back together. I've soldered a piece of wire on. Now we're going to find out, does this motor run? So we're going to get our propeller, stick it on the end. Okay, you can see it's the same motor. There's the little dot that I had there before. Stick your negative onto the body of the wire, get the end of the pin on and flick it, and that runs. See how that runs? Okay, so that would not run before. So by putting our multimeter on it, we know it will run. All it needed was a clean. That's all. That's all you need to do. Okay. So obviously, when we come to put this in, we will put the motor in so that, because don't forget, that's a cranked end. It's not in the center. So you put that in, line it up so that now that pin is in the center of your fuselage. You can see that that's not in the way of anything. You run your cable down to the spring, you tin your spring, you solder this end of the cable to the spring. You can then, if I have one with me, which I did have a moment ago, take your switch, put your switch in, put your battery in, and if your switch is a good switch, it will run. You can get rid of that, and all you have to do is get some silver foil. In fact, what I'm going to go into the kitchen now and see if I can get some silver foil. So I have some silver paper. Flatten that out. It's just what I've got out of the kitchen. And I've not rehearsed this at all. What we do, we're going to make that into a little tiny square, and the thickness we want to be achieving with that is about 3 millimeters. So it's going to be a total fluke if I get this right first time. Because what we really want to do is make a really good connection and disregard the switch, which, if we're being honest about it, is not exactly what you call brilliant. Now, I can't get that perfect because I'm not strong enough, so squeeze that together. Okay. Should be around about right. put that there. Okay, hopefully that's, I haven't soldered this in yet, but we're going to try it. It's just off the cuff just to see if it will work just like that. Get your battery in there. And it's just to see if that will work. Where's the propeller gone? There it is. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. So you can quite happily put your model together. Of course it stops, I've hit the propeller. There you go. That motor was not working, and now it is. Okay, there you go. Stop. Go. Stop. Go. So, there you have it. Get it clean. Get it clean. Get a good connection. Get a good connection. Put your silver foil in. The battery's not going to blow up or anything, and that will work. And as I said, if you can get yourself a multimeter, they're not that expensive. For as long as you have a resistance, yeah, the motor will work. And that is probably the worst motor I had. It came out gungy. If you remember, I was cleaning the ends here. It was all horrible. This was horrible. The inside was horrible. It wouldn't work, and now it works. And that, my friends, is how you get your motor working. So get yourself some, can you see that? Yeah, get yourself some of that. Put the lid on when I'm thinking about it. Get yourself some of that. Okay. Get yourself some flux, some cotton buds, decent hot iron, decent solder. Make sure your battery is good. It's a new battery. Okay. And if you can afford it, a multimeter, and you will get that motor working. So I'll be quite happy now to carry on dealing with this Dinky toy, sticking it into the caustic soda, getting it so it comes out like this one, all nice and ready to go. I know the motor works, it's all soldered in, so what I will be doing is to put that in there. If I can get the cable around, that's it. Put that back in there, correct position, and I shall put the underneath back in. I will then put the screw in wherever I put it, put the screw in, and then I will now prime that, knowing that the motor works. You don't want to get paint under there because that's going to cut off your connectivity. Okay, that's what you got to remember. So put this together, then start to spray it and paint it. Okay, so give us a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, make nice comments, because everybody likes a nice comment. I'm sure I do and you do. And we'll go on to the next step of rebuilding, revamping your Messerschmitt, and in this case it's a BF109E Dinky toy. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoy. Bye.